Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and giant in the tech industry, has some great ideas that could benefit the gaming world. In this video, we would like to explore with you some of the ideas in his book 0 to 1. But before that, we would like to remind you to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Helping our channel to grow will allow us to expand and create more videos. Back to Peter Thiel. Coming up with a new concept in gaming, or in general, can only be one of two things. One, horizontal progress, taking something that works and improving it. We call this kind of progress 1 to N progress. Or 2, vertical progress, doing something no one has imagined before. We call this kind of progress 0 to 1 progress. Vertical progress, doing something new, is, of course, harder to achieve. If you take a first-person shooter game and incrementally improve it on an annual basis, then you're only making 1 to N progress, horizontal progress. But if you create a battle royale system to redefine the genre, then it's 0 to 1 progress. Academia and all the overvalued MBA degrees focus on creating models for running businesses and companies to make them profitable. I say, ignore the paths that are laid out by academics. Don't forget that the arrow of knowledge comes first from practice in the real world, and then it gets documented in academic works. People mistake the arrow of knowledge and think that it shoots from academia into practice. In reality, it's the other way around. It's practitioners who discover things through tinkering, trial and error, and once their discoveries prove to be valuable, they get documented in academia and lecture halls. Running a gaming studio with an academic mindset will only look at past models and theories of what has worked historically, and then theorize on how to optimize these pre-existing models and strategies. In other words, it will barely take us from 1 to N. Only fresh minds, which are not polluted by the myth of academia as a source of innovation, and don't take pseudosciences like social sciences too seriously, are capable of making a 0 to 1 innovation. Let's explore a clear example of a 1 to N gaming studio. Compare the core mechanics of any of Quantic Dream's games to games like Broken Sword or Monkey Island. The similarities are too many to ignore. They are only making horizontal progress. If there's something in common between all games that have shaped the industry in the last 30 years, then it's that they are all games that took the industry from 0 to 1. Zelda, Gran Turismo, The Sims, World of Warcraft, Metal Gear, and even Tetris. Games that expand horizontally on existing ideas don't stand the test of time like these games have. The Half-Life series, even after all these years, is still adored by its fans, including yours truly. The hunger for that 0 to 1 jump is still there, and gamers are still waiting for episode 3. Have you ever wondered why that desire for the next installment has never ceased, even after the release of hundreds and hundreds of other first-person shooters since Half-Life 2 Episode 2 was released? It's the 0 to 1 change that the game brought with it that gamers crave. Through Half-Life, gamers experience for the first time a story from start to finish through the eyes of the protagonist, and interacted physically with objects around them in the game like never before. You might think it's easy for a big firm with big pockets to allocate resources and invest in new ideas, but numbers and observation tell us a different story. In recent years, the 0 to 1 jump keeps happening in the indie world. 0 to 1 is a small studio's only chance of making a dent in the industry. Optimizing an existing model is a no-go, for it requires competition with the giants in the industry, who do nothing much other than allocating their resources to polishing and optimizing existing models. The next game that dethrones Call of Duty as the most popular shooter won't be an optimized Call of Duty, but something totally new. EA seems to completely miss this point in their current strategy of chasing already working models, from the Battlefield series, which tries to be a better Call of Duty, Anthem, which tries to do the same as Destiny, Apex as Overwatch. Just because the 1 to N formula works for them in their sports games, they blindly apply it to non-sports games. If Peter Thiel were to run a gaming studio, the first thing he would do is to ignore the marketing department. Marketing people don't like new things. They prefer familiar names and formulas that can be grasped quickly and are already understood by consumers. Have you ever wondered why in recent decades, less and less original big-budget films are being made, and more sequels or remakes or live-action versions of known stories are appearing? One factor is the emergence of new big markets for movies like China, Russia, and Brazil. But I'll let Linda Obst, the producer of beautiful original films like Interstellar, answer this question. In her book, Sleepless in Hollywood, about why Hollywood Hollywood has lost its originality, i.e. 0 to 1, and stuck to 1 to N models instead, she explains. We can't afford to market a movie, an original movie, the way we do domestically, internationally. We buy tons and tons of television advertising, tons and tons of trailers, and we penetrate all of America to create word of mouth. Well, there's no possible way that you can afford to do that around the world. That's just incalculably expensive. So we need pre-awareness. We need people to know our title, to know the name of the movie, to be familiar with it before it's even marketed. So that means either a movie star's name, that's one form of pre-awareness, but increasingly what that means is the name of the title. Superman, Batman, Pirates of the Caribbean Man, any man movie, any comic book hero that we've grown up with, Harry Potter, any title with that kind of international recognition. So, Hollywood has decided that the path of 0 to 1 is expensive to market, and the safest way is to stick to the 1 to N model. The same is happening in the gaming world. More Battlefields, more Call of Duties, Assassin's Creeds. Our last hope is still with you, our dear indie developers. You are the last bet for 0 to 1 in our beloved industry. All the big industries are engulfed by the 1 to N mentality that argues for sticking to what is easy to market. In the music industry, every year, we hear singers with almost identical voices, identical melodies, and identical themes as if they all come from the same cookie cutter. 1 to N creates a culture of conformity and kills innovation. Sadly, this is where we are heading in many aspects of our lives. The way Peter Thiel perceives creating a 0 to 1 business is highly impacted by the 2000 .com bubble. People like to point to this point in time as the height of pushing 0 to 1 ideas and testing them in the market through IPOs. After the bubble burst, many questioned that model and embraced sticking to incremental changes and to what already worked, i.e. 1 to N. The problem is that during the .com bubble, many companies did not actually propose any real 0 to 1 vertical progress in the first place. At the height of the mania, beverages and non-tech companies started to slap the .com or .net sticker on their names to see their stock prices soar the next day. Some were even planning to put their startups on public offerings before considering what their companies were actually going to produce. Blaming 0 to 1 seems to be the wrong lesson to learn from the 2000 bubble. The problem with 1 to N products is competition. Your starting point is working on an existing product or concept already in use by someone else, and financially, it ends up becoming a race to the bottom. I'll let Peter Thiel himself give an example. US airline companies serve millions of passengers and create hundreds of billions of dollars of value each year. In 2012, when the average airfare each way was $178, the airlines made only 37 cents per passenger trip. Compare them to Google, which creates less value but captures far more. Google brought in $50 billion in 2012 versus $160 billion for the airlines, but it kept 21% of those revenues as profits, more than 100 times the airline industry's profit margin that year. Google makes so much money that it's now worth 3 times more than every US airline combined. The airlines compete with each other, but Google stands alone. I think soon, the free-to-play shooter market will be like the airline business, with all developers racing to the bottom, undercutting each other and declaring bankruptcy in the process. Metal Gear Solid is a 0 to 1 game and was able to capitalize with its new concepts on the stealth games market. Left Alive by Square Enix is a 1 to N shadow of Metal Gear and will go unnoticed in history. Hearthstone is another 0 to 1 game that dominated the digital cards market. Other 1 to N card games keep on hatching and disappearing every month without anybody noticing them. The benefits of creating a business around a 0 to 1 product is that it provides a semi-monopoly to its creators, like that of Google's search engine or Microsoft's operating system on PCs. The tricky part about monopolies in game arenas is that games are much easier to replicate and improve upon. However, studios still have a very strong incentive to pursue and aim for even a short-lived monopoly. At some point in the future, Epic might not dominate the market with Fortnite, but having that vertical competitive advantage for a while is still worth it. Let me end this by quoting Peter Thiel and Tolstoy. Tolstoy opens Anna Karenina by observing, "All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Business is the opposite. All happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They failed to escape competition." Thank you friends for watching, and don't forget that you can get early access to all of our upcoming videos through Patreon. We would like to thank the producers of this show on Patreon, especially Finn Campbell, Gamdan, Luffy, and Nur. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. I'm your host Elizabeth, and behind the computer screen is Hytham. See you soon!